Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of All Things Crime. I appreciate you watching and listening, whatever platform you're on, whether it's YouTube or Rumble, Spotify, wherever you're at. Appreciate you. And while we're here, why don't you click on that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. And for those of you that are really involved, throw me a some kind of a 5-star review. 4 stars just not allowed. So 5-star review, I'd really appreciate it. And let's get into the show. So today's guest is Cloyd Steiger. This man has been around the world teaching others how to investigate homicides, served, 20 some years with Seattle Homicide. I don't know, 40 years. What total, how many years did you have, Cloyd?
Well, 36 on the Seattle Police Department, then about 4 on the Washington State Attorney General's office, where I was head of the homicide investigation tracking system.
Yeah, so you've been around the block a few times.
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, is because you're one of the most experienced homicide detectives that I know. And plus, you're a good friend. I love having you on.
Yeah, good to be here.
Well, Cloyd, the reason that wanted to have you on also is because we ran into this headline up here. This is out of the Washington Post, and I just want to read this. So the first one, it says, neighbor of New York City maniac who butchered sibling 8 and stabbed parents speaks out. He never smiled. So basically, for those of you that haven't heard about this case, there's a 20-year-old, his name's Pedro Felix, or was, fortunately, in New York City, living there with his stepmom and stepbrother and father in an apartment in Queens. And this is on the 4th of July, too. So police respond to this apartment, and basically he had stabbed his little brother multiple times, stabbed his stepmom, and she had run out of the apartment screaming for help. And in the meantime, he had stabbed his father. And when the police arrived, well, Pedro, the 20-year-old, had his father in a headlock and a knife to his throat. And that's when police responded. It said then the police told him to drop the knife multiple times in both English and in Spanish. And he wouldn't do it. So one of the officers fired 1 round and injured him enough that he died from that wound. But when they got to the hospital, the 8-year-old and the 20-year-old had died. And then the parents, who were both stabbed, weren't critical, but it was bad enough that they obviously had to be hospitalized. So this is the scene that we're talking about. So well, first of all, what's your first reaction, Cloyd, to just hearing about this?
Well, I've actually been on cases exactly like this, where a guy about 20 years old goes crazy and starts stabbing everybody in the house or shooting people, and is killed by the police. Is kind of a very similar scenario on a beautiful summer afternoon. What I'd want to know is, what's the toxicology on this kid? The one I had, the guy was shermed, which means, they dip marijuana in formaldehyde and smoke it, and it just makes people crazy. And so I'd want to know what his toxicology was. And he was probably, I'm sure this was leading up to this point the whole time. The fact that it's a stepmother and stepbrother makes a lot of difference. Whereas if it was his birth mother and birth brother, probably been less likely to stab them like that, just because of that. There's an attachment. There probably was not an attachment to these two. Maybe he felt, I don't know how long they've been married, his mother and his father and this woman. Maybe he felt kind of like imposed upon by her and the kid, and there was resentment built up. And he's obviously got problems before this. You want to know what his
I'd love to see what his rap sheet is.
Yeah, and his school background and antisocial behavior, what his computer says, search what his computer searches were and see what kind of stuff he was doing. But terrible tragedy. And the thing about this is people don't realize that 90, probably 90, maybe even 93 or 4% of people who get stabbed don't die from it. But when you're a child and you're stabbed multiple times, the chances of hitting vital organs are much greater.
Yeah, well, they said he was stabbed in the chest.
Yeah.
So,
and so you're going to hit something. Whereas with an adult, you might miss, it might not hit anything that bad, or else it'll bleed out so slowly that you have a chance to rescue them and save them. The medical people do.
Yeah. Well, and I think the mother, if my math is correct, the father was 23 years older than the perp, but the mom was like 10 years younger than that. So she would have been, if it was his actual mom, she would have only been 13.
Yeah.
So I kind of deducted that it was, hopefully it was a stepmom.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think I read that it was a stepmom too, and it said half brother, but you're probably right. It was probably a stepbrother.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting that there's not as much of an attachment,
emotional attachment to somebody you were there when they were born and that type of thing, and maybe raised up together. And whereas this kid he probably felt this kid came in and took all his attention away, that he was getting from his father, and this woman was to blame. And that's what boiled. I'm just speculating. I don't know anything about this kid. Yeah. But that sounds like a reasonable guess.
Yeah. Well, you've seen enough of those type of, again, that's why I thought you would be really good with understanding this case, because you've probably seen so many of these. So that kind of leads me to my next question is, you walk into, of all the stabbings that you've walked into, where there's obviously victims and it sounds like they removed the victims really quickly because there was a chance that they could have survived.
Right?
Yeah. But tell me what you think this crime scene looks like.
Well, for one thing, it's going to be very bloody because stabbings are bloody. There's probably blood all over the walls, blood everywhere, and furniture knocked over, chaotic. The one I was talking about, I remember walking in. Again, it was a beautiful summer afternoon, walking into the room, and there's a 18-month-old child dead on the floor, covered in blood. There's a bathtub that was almost full of blood because he took a 5-year-old in there and stabbed her repeatedly, although she ended up surviving. She was the only one in the family that survived. There's a 17-year-old boy dead on the couch, and then, of course, the suspect was dead on the street outside because when he pulled up, he had a gun. He pointed at the officers, and they shot and killed him. And so it's just chaotic.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some, photos of those kind of crime scenes and it's amazing.
That smell of blood,
Yeah.
It's that metallic smell.
Well, which is almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
If you just go into a butcher shop, sometimes that smell is,
you got that smell. Yeah.
Bad enough. But, a crime scene
they
like
usually
that.
have big ventilation systems to take care of that.
Right.
But this house or apartment, and it's hot inside because it's a hot day and they don't have air conditioning.
And especially if they've been there for any length of time,
right,
it gets worse. So
well, these are really fresh. But I've been to ones that were unbearable because of decomposition too.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't fully understand about both, just law enforcement in general, but specifically crime scene, the folks that actually have to process that crime scene after the crime. If it's
not what you see on CSI. I guarantee you that.
No, it's not even close.
Nice and clean, a couple splatters of blood.
Yeah. There's just blood everywhere. I think part of the reasons they wear Tyvek suits, which adds to the misery, of course, but
because it makes you hot.
Yeah. But it also just protects your clothing a little bit. It's like
does. Yeah.
Some of the, they have to kneel down and, whatever. Anyway, these crime scenes are pretty brutal, but
they're brutal,
every CSI and detective that I've talked to, they say one of the worst problems is the smell.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When you're watching it on TV, the sight of it, they can kind of recreate that. But even looking
Right.
at
You can't
pictures,
recreate the smell. No.
yeah, yeah, the different smells is yeah, it just adds to the horror of the scene, and
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
just can't be recreated. So
No,
I
it can't.
it's one of those things that you just look at Hollywood and you're like, yeah, you know what? You get another F on that one. So,
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
all right. So they walk into this scene. Take me to the perspective you think of these officers that are responding there.
The
I mean,
patrol officers,
how long were you just a street cop before you became a
10
detective?
years. 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you probably had incidents like this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You get there and it's chaos. The guy's screaming when you have a situation like that, a hostage, and you're a patrol officer and you're probably only armed with a handgun, that what you got to do, what you normally do, there's going to be a spot, usually the head, and you just have to take careful aim, and then when you're able, take that shot, because otherwise the hostage is dead. He's already killed the brother. He's tried to kill the mother. He's already stabbed the father. If you don't do something, this guy is dead. So you got to do it right away. You only have a second or two. You give him like 1 or 2 seconds to drop and surrender. And if he doesn't, it's over. That's the way it goes.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Not only had he already stabbed his father, but he also had that knife to his throat.
He was gonna cut his throat. And once he does that, I don't care if the medics are standing right there. His father's not going to survive if he cuts that throat.
Oh, it's a big knife too.
Yeah.
So he could have covered a lot of territory and just really.
That's why they had to do that. You get those. It's those shoot don't shoot scenarios that you train so often for. They have simulators, but it's not the same because of the chaos and your heart's beating 150 beats a second, and people are screaming all around you, and you got that one shot and you got to take it. So the officer was a hero that did this. He saved the father's life. Yeah,
and which is exactly what the neighbors said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he's put in that position. I'm sure the officer didn't want to be put in that position, but that's what you get paid for. That's what you're trained for. That's what happens. You get in there and you got to go.
Yeah. Well, did you personally have any scenarios where you had to pull the trigger like that?
No, I didn't. I was there when other officers did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my middle son, who was an officer at SPD, he shot and killed someone a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it was same
That's
thing.
just brutal.
Yeah.
How's how was he able to handle that?
This guy had walked up on a teenage girl in the car, an absolute stranger, and shot and killed her. And then when the officers put up, he pointed the gun at them and shot. So it wasn't like some close call, and he just took it. But the guy was at like 70 feet away. So, they had to shoot pretty good, him and his partner, to get the guy, and they did.
And
70 feet is a long way with a handgun.
Oh, 70 feet's a long ways.
Long way. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Long way. Yeah.
And he
yeah,
center mass kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they hit him several times because they didn't just shoot once.
Yeah. No, I'm sure, but still to be able to hit anything
they hit him
with a
several
handgun.
times all over his body, but yeah.
Yeah. 70 feet, that's
a long way when you're firing a handgun. Yeah.
Most people don't understand how far that is for a handgun.
Most officer involved shootings happen within 5 feet. You're 5 feet from your target,
wow.
and go out to the range sometime and put yourself 20 feet from the target. It's hard to hit, a standing still target, not something that's moving, right? Yeah.
Well, I spent quite a bit of time at the pistol range, in the military.
Yeah.
And
it's up close. It's up close and personal. It's not for you got to have a rifle for a distance shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any kind of a rifle, that's a
yeah.
If you
70 feet
is
miss,
that's
for a rifle
that's
shot.
ridiculous. No. But if you're with a handgun at 70 feet,
that's a long ways away.
And I mean, in a real life scenario, the guy's not going to just be standing there for you.
No. And that's why, he fired at them, but he was way too far away and had no experience and didn't even come close. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, part of of what I was, thinking about when I was reading these articles, and I'm just like, number one, it's just so tragic that a little 8-year-old boy is killed like this. And
I investigated 250 murders, and the only ones that ever get to me were the kids or the victims.
Yeah,
those are the only ones that bothered me. Not that I didn't feel empathy for all of them, but the kids were the worst. Yeah.
Well, and it's because at that age, I don't care how unruly a child is
They're
at 8
still
years old.
innocent. Yeah.
They're still, there's no way that they deserved whatever they got, and
No.
who
And it
knows?
sounds like, not that it matters, but it sounds like this kid, oh, he was always happy and smiling and things like that. That's what the neighbors said. So, but it still
Yeah,
didn't matter. But I mean, that makes it even worse.
which
Sounds like
is
a kid.
which is actually the opposite of what the 20-year-old was.
Yeah, exactly. The opposite. The 20-year-old stoic, never smiled, kept himself, probably never, hardly ever come out of his room. That's why I'd want to look. I'd do a forensic dump on his computer and see what he's in his phone and see what he's been looking up and what's going on there. Of course, in these cases, you know, you do the investigation, but it doesn't really matter because there's not going to be any criminal charges, any trial. It's just trying to find out what happened.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leads me to my one of the questions that I had when I was reading this is, okay, so what kind of circumstances are we looking at that, number one, the kid's really stoic, he's unfriendly. The neighbors said whenever they passed, he wouldn't even say hi, things like that.
Yeah.
What is it about this kid's circumstances that you think? Again, I'm basing this on the assumption that you've seen cases like this before,
Yeah.
that you've actually investigated. I'm trying to, bring these parallels, but most importantly is, as we're looking at this, okay, so I mean, not every quiet, stoic type of a kid is going to be a
No.
mass
No.
murderer, but
No.
at the same time, if there's red flags that people can think about and see, then maybe they can help this kid
I
before.
guarantee you there were red flags in this situation, just nobody noticed them. When you go back in retrospect, you'll see it. Again, I don't know anything about this kid. Everything we're saying is speculation.
Right.
But I bet he had psychological problems, if not undiagnosed, most likely. I said this years ago. We were raising a whole generation of psychopaths, usually because it's not living with a mother and father, which isn't the case with this guy, although it's a father and stepmother, and they're out running the streets with no discipline or any rules at all, and so they just get this way. It doesn't sound like this kid was that way, but I don't know. That's why I want to know, what's he been searching on his phone, or is he playing kill 'em games and stuff, which doesn't, a lot of kids play those games and it doesn't do anything to them. But if you're the right, just happen to have the right personality, that could probably have an effect on you. The fake killing, which, it's no big deal, it's just fake. A lot of kids that are normal kids play these violent games. I'm not saying they should, but have no long-lasting effect because of it, because they're healthy otherwise. They have supportive parents and friends and things like that. But what was this guy? I bet you, was he alone, or did he have friends? And if he did, what were they doing? Was he on any kind of drugs? What was his search? What was his? Did he have fantasies of murder and stuff? He probably did. Again, only speculating. I don't know this kid at all or anything about him. So
No, but if you look all the way back to the Columbine shootings,
yeah, oh yeah,
those kids, clearly there was a lot wrong with them.
Yeah,
but the sheer fact that they obsessed over their video games,
yeah,
and it was all in the first person, so that the view that they had was always, from the backside of some kind of a weapon, so that they were literally shooting people, and it was very violent. But then they also just fantasized about actually doing it.
Right.
And,
yeah. Well, I had a different murder where an 18-year-old shot and killed a 17-year-old in front of his house. But this kid lived in $1 million mansion, and his parents were both Microsoft executives. But were there any signs? Well, yeah, he had an AK-47 on the wall of his bedroom and another rifle and guns. This 18-year-old letting him keep these guns in his house? And he was smoking dope constantly, and they ended up killing this guy, and he went to prison. That's the thing. It's just like, because they just were, like latchkey parents. They were always gone. But you can have more guns. And I'm not anti-gun, believe me, but you have to be a mature adult, right? Yeah, you have to be a mature adult and understand guns. But he was probably, I don't remember if he probably did play a lot of video games where he was behind a gun. But what's this kid got an AK-47 for, 18 years old, hanging on the wall? If only there'd been a sign, come on.
If only we had seen anything that would have
Yeah, there was no
indicated.
sign at all. People were shocked. No, they weren't. And when I interviewed, he'd been smoking so much dope. He was a constant state of lethargic, and couldn't think straight, and just
Well, and when you're in that kind of that level of drugs, then
yeah,
they're probably experimenting with other things, and then
probably.
and
I'll
any kind
I'll
of
never forget.
psychedelic, something
He
like
asked
that.
for his attorney, and I had to figure out who his attorney was. So I finally figured out, yeah, that's her. And I called her up at like midnight. Yeah, we have what's his name in custody. Oh, what's the charge? And I said, she thought it was possession of marijuana. So I said, murder. And there was this long pause on the phone. She'd never handled a murder. She didn't know what she was doing. Yeah, what? What a shock to everyone, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's that case where the parents have actually been charged
Oh,
because
yeah. Because
they
they're so
enabled their
reckless.
kid.
Yeah, they're so reckless. And I have mixed feelings about that, but depending on the level of how much they ignore things and what's going on and how much they enable by buying them guns or things like that, that's another issue.
Yeah. Well, if you're buying your kid guns and you honestly don't have a really good assessment of the level of disturbance that this kid is,
Right.
yeah. Well,
That's a problem.
I
Now,
mean,
if
that's
you're
accessory, right? Isn't that what they were charged with? Accessory to murder?
yeah. Now, if you're a family that has guns and shoots and does it all together and goes out to the range and shoots, but you keep the guns yourself and you're just getting them familiar, I'm not opposed to that. But, just giving teenagers rifles is ridiculous. Just to go, especially in an urban environment. You're not out in the farm with your
most
22.
of America. You just described most of America, Cloyd, where
yeah, I know.
We have a bunch of guns and we take our kids out to the range and go shoot bottles.
Of course, I have guns. That's
a
but
fun afternoon to me.
I didn't give them guns that they had control of at 15 and 16 or 17.
Right. No, I don't know. I wonder some of these people, if they just don't understand what a gun can do.
They don't. It's like a prop. They see it on TV, or in a game.
Yeah.
You have to have a real respect for the weapon. The gun never killed anybody, but the person behind it does.
Yeah. No, a gun is just like anything else. It's
anything else, right?
I don't. They say guns kill people. No, they don't.
People kill people. Yeah.
Yeah. You set a gun down on a kitchen table, and it'll sit there for years before it kills anybody.
Nobody touches it. Yeah, it's not going to kill anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
When I was
I love that one
still
too.
Working as a police officer, my boys were young. I intentionally took my pistol out and laid it on the counter in the kitchen, unloaded, just to see what they do. And they kept screaming, "Dad, your gun's on the counter!" That's what I was looking for. I didn't want to pick it up, but it was a test, and it worked. And they were because I carried a gun like a wallet, right? So they were used to seeing guns all the time. They understood, and we told them early, "You don't ever touch this. It's a dangerous thing." And so, but you got to educate your kids about firearms. And the other thing I always tell kids is, if you're at your friend's house and he pulls out a gun that his dad has, run, go home, get out of there. Because I've handled those cases too, where a kid's showing his friend a gun and boom, it goes off and kills the friend. Because he doesn't know what he's doing. If your friend has a gun and wants to show you, you get the hell out of there and come home right now.
No, that's absolutely what they should do.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you get teenagers like that, and
they think they know what they're doing.
And I actually have one like that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they're always trying to impress somebody else,
right?
And showing off, and doing stupid things, impulsive things, and then next thing you know, and
it affects the rest of their lives, right? You can never go back to that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, here it's going to be rapid fire here for you, because I'm wondering what the conditions are about, again, reverting back to this New York case. And I'm glad you brought it up, with the toxicology report, because if this kid, so you think that's probably one of the most telling signs?
That and his computer and phone searches, those combined are all equally telling.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk to the dad. What set him off that day? What happened? What was going on at your house that he all of a sudden went
Yeah.
off? Yeah, and the mom.
Well, especially why would he attack the 8-year-old first?
Yeah, because there was resentment there. That's why. Because this 8-year-old has taken the attention from his dad away that he got exclusively before the 8-year-old came around. Now, again, I don't know how long these people have been married. Is it a year? Or was this child born? I don't think if it's his dad's son also or daughter or whatever it was,
Yeah.
then it'd be a half sister. But I'd like to know that. What's the relationship? And how long you've been married, and how was their interaction before this? Was he snippy at the sibling, or yelling at him all the time, or complaining about him? And what's going on with that? And what happened that day? What about that? It's 4th of July apparently. Had you been drinking, doing drugs? What were you doing at the house? Again, this is in Queens. It's a densely packed urban area, so
Yeah.
that's what I want to know.
I mean, that's just brought us a totally different direction. But I was thinking as I was reading all this, one of my first things was, I've seen all these videos from let's see, what is that, Gen Z?
I don't know what we are now.
The 20-year-olds. Anyway,
we're boomers. That's all I know.
Yeah. Well, Gen Alpha is like 8-year-olds now.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's I get them all mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it's Gen Z.
Maybe.
That
yeah.
They because Gen X was before them.
Right.
And I think those are like 30-year-olds now.
Or 40-year-olds, yeah.
Anyway, the Gen Zers, that the videos that I've seen, they're like, I have 2 and 3 jobs. I'm trying to make ends meet here, and I still can't even afford an apartment.
Right.
And of course that's in the city. But I'll tell you, my daughter, my second daughter is 19. She's just finished her first year in college, and the apartments that she is looking at and trying to, that are anywhere close to a university.
Outrageous.
It's stupid. And that's here in Utah.
Yeah, exactly.
You get to a big city like New York.
Right.
And I'm sure that little apartment that they were in had to be what, 2,000 or 3,000 a month?
Probably.
Minimum?
And it's probably very small. So they're all right on top of each other, which adds to the tension.
Yeah.
This kid probably had a bedroom. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, then you have with the inflation that's happened right now. Your dollar's worth what, 80 cents compared to what it was maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, literally right now, the only people that are actually doing well are the people that are being paid by the government because they're just throwing money around.
Right.
But if you're actually in the private sector,
it's a lot tougher.
Yeah, wages just haven't kept up. And so I understand that the Gen Z and, Gen X, they have this reputation for being basically lazy because they've never really had the opportunities to truly learn how to work.
Right.
But at the same time, there are some out there that they are trying really hard. And like I said, 2, 3 jobs sometimes, and they're still not making ends meet.
Right.
So my thought is, I'm wondering if possibly this kid, maybe he is a, like you said, the psychopath that we're raising right now, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, a lot of these Gen Zers that are out there, they are working hard, they're trying, and yet between the economic circumstances and everything else, they have no hope. That's my point.
That's part of it. Yeah. And I just off the complete amateur guess, I would guess this kid is not working because he doesn't have the social skills to interact with other people. It sounds like. I wonder if he was though, if he does it some menial labor thing that he sees as a dead end, which it probably was. But you have to improve yourself and train yourself to get a job you want, and go from there. But I don't know. It was probably pretty bleak.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's another good factor. So when you're let's do a little sidebar here. When you're investigating a crime like this, and the victim's young, he should be doing better than what he probably was.
Yeah. You
due
mean the
to different
suspect?
circumstances. Out of those, number one, how many of them even have been trying to really improve themselves? Because I think that's one of the
Very
biggest,
few.
the
'Cause-
entitlement
yeah.
mentality that a lot of these kids have is, hey, I'm, you know, I graduated college, I should be getting paid 100 grand a year.
Yeah. Well, it depends what if your degree is in art or gender studies, and there aren't a lot of jobs for that. It depends what your degree's in. That's the thing. It's really important to decide what you're going to waste or spend your money on for a degree as far as the potential for income coming out. But very few of these people that are suspects in these kind of murders have anything going like that. Because if they did, their head's in the right place anyway, and they're trying, right? And these people aren't. They're either running the streets and they have all their lives in a situation where violence is glorified, where you pull out your gun at the slightest slight against you, and then and that's your culture you're in, and it's perpetuated over and over. I remember arresting late in my career. I would arrest people, and I'd say, "I arrested your grandfather when he was your age," who of course was only 40 years older than him.
Yeah.
45 years, because that's the way it is. It's just like, oh, because they're all junior, senior, junior, and the third, and oh yeah, it's the same families over and over and over. There were certain
Yeah.
families you knew their whole background and knew them, and you'd arrested several of them, and there was a family called Everybody Talks About, and that was their name, and they were right because I arrested 2 or 3 of them for murders. And I investigated another one where another family was a victim of murder. So I mean, it's just that perpetual thing about the way their family lives and their culture and what they think is acceptable and not, and they're just trapped in that loop.
Yeah. Well, they say that you can tell somebody's future based on what the family talks about, over the dinner table.
Oh yeah, I saw some video not too long ago of somebody throwing a birthday party for like a little kid. It was a birthday party, like a 10th birthday party, and the theme of it was they had all this fake money and fake guns, and they're holding it up and holding the guns up and holding all this fake cash up. And like that was the birthday party for like a 10-year-old. Come on. You're just perpetuating that that's what's cool, and they're gonna end up, getting killed or killing somebody or going to prison for the rest of their lives because that's what you're showing them life is about. And what are you thinking as a parent? And the parents are all there laughing and smiling and them holding up the toy guns and wads of cash, living the gangster life.
Yeah. Well, as if these video games don't cheapen, if you get killed, you just get a new life.
Yeah, exactly. You just start over. That's not, people don't realize that didn't happen in real life.
Yeah. In real life, you got one shot.
Yeah.
And
No pun intended.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but literally these kids, they have no concept of what real life is, especially based on violence. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
okay, you know what, this violence that you're putting into your brain in a video game is fine.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
there's no repercussion once you're
None.
done.
You're not going to prison and you're not dying. And
Right.
you're not killing anybody in real life. Yeah.
Yeah. But in
But
real
sometimes
life,
that blurs the line.
well, which is sad.
Yeah.
Another video that I saw was of a officer. It's from his perspective. It's his body cam, and he's talking to this guy who's just kind of peering out from the door frame, and he's like, "Hey, do you have a gun?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I do." And so he immediately pulls his weapon, and he says, "Look, man, we don't want to do this." He said, "I have a wife and 3 kids. Let's not do this. Let's just settle down." But I think the guy, the perp, was basically, just intent on this, suicide by cop thing.
Right.
And he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, which he did.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the officer, he immediately tries to invoke, personalize it. He said,
Right.
"Hey, I have a wife and 3 kids. Let's not do this." Hey, how many times have you talked to officers about post shootings that it just, what does it do to them?
Yeah. Well, I've investigated a lot of officer involved shootings, First of all, it happens so fast. They all say, "Oh, you got to de-escalate." Well, sometimes there's no chance. It just happens, snap, 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 and it's done. And if you pause trying to do something else, you're going to get killed, right? And people the bugs me the most is the people that have no idea what this is about want to tell you how to do it. They've never done it. They've never been in that situation. They want to tell you how to do it, and they want to criticize you afterwards because you didn't do what they think should have been done. But
Right.
it doesn't. It's just an instant snap, snap, snap usually. I've been to a lot of officer shooting scenes where there's taser wires sticking out of the suspect because they tried to tase a guy with a gun or a knife, which you do not do. You meet deadly force with deadly force. You have to, because you're going to get killed if you mess around. So it's just, it drives me crazy. And, these officers don't want to go out. They didn't go to work. Well, I hope I get to shoot somebody today. It's not a good deal. And body cams actually have been pretty good for showing that how quickly the situation escalates. And sometimes it's already escalated. Like I said, this guy's set on suicide by cop before you even get there. It isn't going to work most of the time. He's gonna do it. He's gonna get you to kill it or take you with him.
Well, personally, I think most of the body cam videos that I've seen, I think the officers have given them too much shot.
Right, they do way too much
opportunity.
I see it all the time. I go, what are you doing? You got to shoot that guy or something or whatever because you're going to get yourself killed.
Right.
Or one of your comrades killed, and you don't want to do that either.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, like you said, all these people that try to tell you how to do things, especially when it's, they're evaluating, your performance afterwards and then saying, well, you should have done this and should have done that.
Yeah. You go out and show me how it's done. You'll have a bunch of these people dead. You go out and show me how it's done. Yeah.
and a lot of these people are like politician types.
Yeah. Or lawyers or whatever. They have no concept.
Yeah.
No concept at all. Go out and show me how it's done. If you think this is how it should be done, you go do it, and I'll see how you do.
Yeah, it's ironic that most of them, would never even go to a simulator.
Not even, because they don't want to know that. They don't. In here, there were some people. Well, there's no option to run away. Well, you know what? There is no option to run away because you're the police. You have to handle this. If you run away and he kills 3 or 4 people afterwards, what's everybody going to say?
Yeah, just shoot him in the leg. Isn't that the
shoot him
answer?
in the leg. Yeah. Because the guy shot in the leg cannot possibly shoot you back.
Well, again, having spent some time on the range, it's hard enough to hit
anything. You got to aim for center mass. Yeah,
at 25 feet.
That's a long.
It
way.
is.
Almost never. There's never any handgun course where they have you shoot a handgun more than 25 feet. That's the max back. Yeah, because realistically, you're going to miss.
And 25 feet. If people think about it, 25 feet is literally across a decent living room.
Yeah. It's a long ways. And try it. Go out. Just go out to the range, rent a gun if you have to, and shoot from various range of distances and see how hard it is to hit.
and then try to imagine shooting a smaller target
that's moving,
like a leg or a hand that's moving.
Yeah.
And you're guessing which direction it's moving.
Exactly. It ain't gonna happen.
And it's just, I don't know. I don't care what kind of sharpshooter you are.
No, these are all people that just shoot them in the leg. Yeah.
1 out of 100.
Yeah.
So then,
and even if you hit it, they can still kill you.
Right. Yeah. Some of these guys that are all hyped up on all sorts of speed or drugs, other drugs, you hit them. And what is it? What do they say? By the time you can actually unholster your weapon and pull the trigger, somebody can. What's the distance?
If they've got a gun in their hands, it takes them about a quarter second to lift it and fire, and you can't do the same back, and that because the reaction time is longer than that.
Right, but they can cover 20 feet if they're running
with a knife. Yeah, they can really fast. You might hit them, but people don't usually go down the first time they're hit with a bullet. And they'll still stab you. Yeah.
Again, just going back, reading about these cops. I mean, this entire story that we started with, everything about it to me is just beyond tragic because
it is. Yeah.
Number one, it's July 4th. They should be out barbecuing and enjoying the holiday.
Yeah.
But instead, this something snaps in this 20-year-old,
Right.
and he ends up stabbing the 8-year-old, stabbing his parents.
Well, it's a miracle the parents survived. Like I said, that officer that responded and shot him is a hero because he saved the father's life for sure.
Yeah. But, now these parents, not only are they healing physically, but they have to heal emotionally and psychologically
Losing two
because
kids.
their 2 kids that they had a day before are now both gone.
Right. Exactly.
And, they have to deal with the trauma that they had. But there's also the officers and the
Right.
neighbors.
Yeah.
The officers have to deal with having seen an 8-year-old be stabbed to death.
Right.
They have to,
And
one
the
of them,
medics that responded, everybody. Yeah.
yeah, the one that actually pulled the trigger has to deal with that.
Right.
The neighbors have to deal with, not only did this, wonderful little 8-year-old happy kid get brutally murdered, but they also have to deal with the fact that you would think that they would constantly be saying, what could I have done
They
differently?
probably are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
to maybe
What
have
did I
spotted
not?
this.
What did I not report or see that I should have?
Yeah, but even if the kid was stoic and didn't talk much,
A lot of teen to 20-year-old boys are like that. They're in their
right?
own little world. They go into their bedroom, hardly ever come out. You know,
Well, again, many of them have no hope.
none.
They have
Yeah.
no ability. At least there's no path that they can
In their mind
see.
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I'm screwed. Yeah,
But they're
first of
not.
all,
But they're not looking at it out realistically, and they're also not doing anything to improve their own lot. Right? You have to work at that. It isn't just going to get handed to you.
100% understand that, but
Yeah.
part of that is the people that they surround themselves, but
That's
also,
exactly right.
if the dad is just working so hard that he's barely keeping his head above water himself,
Right. He's not spending any quality time with the kid.
right? I mean, men have to teach men. That's
Yeah.
one of the
That's
things that
exactly right. Yeah.
because it's interesting. I've actually watched some documentaries on different species like gorilla and deer and all sorts of other species that if the young bucks, if the young males in that species are not taught by an older one and kept in line and basically shown what the boundaries are
Right.
by the older male, then they become so feral that they can't even be a part of society.
Yeah. And that's
And
what's going on in the U.S. today. The number of fatherless families is outrageous. And
right,
people just get women pregnant and move on. And then the welfare system had just encouraged that. There's no exit path in that. Like, here, we'll train you to do this. Well, watch your kid while you go to school to better your life and then go out. I remember when I was doing sex crimes, I went to talk to a woman. I knocked on her door and asked about her daughter. She's in the living room watching soap operas. Where's your daughter? Oh, she's at daycare paid for by the state. But this woman's just sitting there watching soap operas. You should be getting your butt out. I didn't say this, of course. Get your butt out and go to school and learn something so you can exit this path and have a productive life for you and your child. But the system's not set up that way.
yeah. Well, got to thank LBJ all the way till the present.
No, that's exactly right.
All these crazy people that think that they're doing society, they're helping in the name of compassion, but in reality, they're setting up circumstances for people to not even have to work, and that just makes people more lazy. And then,
they feel it's an entitlement toward that.
Yeah,
they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I mean the whole concept of hard work and maintaining your morality and keeping your virtue, those kind of things are just not being taught.
That's right.
Nearly enough anymore. So
exactly right.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, we could spend a whole nother 10 hours on that one, but
sure. Yeah,
I
that's the big question, right? That's the big problem with society right now.
Right. Well, especially in the Western countries, you think about I what's the saying? It says, hard men create hard or easy times or something like that. Easy times create soft men.
Exactly.
Soft men create hard times, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. That's exactly right.
I know I've completely butchered that, but
No, but
it's
the gist was right. I've seen that. Yeah.
right. So, and if you look at it, I think we are definitely into the soft men create hard
We are.
times.
Yeah.
That's
And
where
it's
we're headed.
encouraged. They want to emasculate men, yeah, yeah.
Well, every Western country, it's crazy right now. Not only are we in the Western, and let's just take the U.S. for example. I mean, Europe. Every video I see out of Europe, I'm like, oh, you guys are screwed.
Yeah,
You
no
have
kidding.
no idea what is happening. But
Yeah.
here in the U.S., we emasculate men. There's so many people that literally never get off the couch. There's tons of people that nothing is real anymore. They're most of their life is AI and virtual.
Virtual, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're at the same time we're allowing these third world men into our country in tens of thousands, if not millions.
Millions, yeah.
And these guys are the polar opposite. I mean, if you think about a lot of these immigrants that are coming in right now, a lot of these guys have been working their entire lives.
Right.
They know nothing more than work.
Right.
From the time that they were 5, if they actually were going to survive, the only way they could do it was by physically working.
Right.
And, so some of these guys, they're 20s now and they've been working their whole lives. They get into the US, they see the luxury that we have. I mean, you take the poorest of American, they are living 10 times better than these guys that are coming over from Africa and Haiti. And I mean, it's the poorest American. I don't care how poor you are.
Right.
You have a better life than some of the a lot of these countries don't even have a middle class.
Right.
But 99% of the rest of the world, you're living better than them.
That's right. Yeah.
Almost everybody has cell phones, flushing toilets, all of that. And so now we're allowing in the millions, all of these young men into this world. They have no skills that we actually need. So there's no real jobs that they can get.
Right.
But they see a target rich environment. They look at us and they say, man, you guys have all the money in the world. You have these grocery stores that are just packed with fruits and vegetables and everything that we want. Stores that have, 100 iPhones along the benches. You have this wealth that's just everywhere compared to what they're accustomed to.
Right.
They have no, other than a government check, which ironically is bigger than most Social Security checks that people get. And it's just, it's just target rich environment. And
exactly.
You cannot be surprised that some of these guys are turning, they become bitter, they become violent, and they say, you have everything, I have nothing, I'm going to take what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's an interesting world that we live in right now. I'm telling you, it's and it's only going to get worse until, enough of us stand up and say, okay, we have to fix this.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's exactly right.
All right, Cloyd. Well,
live with their head in the sand. Yeah.
Any last thoughts about this case or anything in particular?
I mean, like you said, it's a tragedy, and these families will never get over this. And it's so avoidable too, most likely. Be interesting to see what they find. Of course, we'll never hear what they find, but it would be interesting to see.
Well, I think this is just such a run-of-the-mill type of a
it really
case.
Is, unfortunately. Nothing shocks you anymore.
It got its 24 hours of coverage, and then everybody's moved on.
Away. Yeah.
Yep. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's only a basically a double homicide, or not a double homicide. It's a homicide, and then the perpetrator was killed, but the parents are stabbed. It's just,
Yeah,
Everyday news in a big city, right?
it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, sad enough, but I appreciate your insight on it.
Good
And
thing, buddy. Anytime.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure there won't be another incident like this until what, tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.